Hello, writers, and welcome to Writing for Screens, writing my novel Progress Report number 5. My name is Glenn Gers, and I am the Chief Operating Everything of Writing for Screens, a channel in which I am trying to teach screenwriting, writing for any form of screen. But in this particular series, I'm not doing that. I am talking about fiction, about writing a novel. People have shown interest in this topic, and I am working on a book, so I have decided to take a time out every once in a while and talk about what it's like for a screenwriter to try and write a book. And there is Maria. Hello, Maria. Most of the time, I will be doing screenwriting live streams Tuesday and Thursday at 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time Zone. That's where I am. And when you are looking for screenwriting help, the thing to do is go to my channel, to the main page of my channel. And on that main page, the first 3 playlists are a series of brightly colored thumbnails showing the 3 main topics of my lessons. These are little 10-minute videos on very specific, helpful topics. The first first screenwriting playlist is Screenwriting Essentials, then Screenwriting Tools, Skills, Craft, and the process, being a writer. I have tried to distill down the most helpful things I can into short, useful videos. Please look at those. That is where I have what I have to teach. Please go there. In the meantime, let me catch up on some hellos. 3 Kachi, hello. I know, we are really growing here, Maria. Thank you. Hello, Sonia. Hello, Michael. Hello, Larry. Hello, Donna. Hello, Hopfner. Hello to everybody who is here. This is wonderful. Today's topic is not script writing. It is novel writing. And I'm going to catch you up on what I've been doing lately and talk about some of the issues that were raised for me. The first thing, this is really important for me to say. I am not an expert on writing fiction. I cannot talk to you about with the right way to do this. I do not know. I am just sharing my experience in case it is interesting to you, and frankly, because I hope to gain, keep my channel going and growing, and to gain interest in the book. If I ever do finish it, I want to have people want to read it. So that's what I'm doing here. But in the meantime, I think that actually it might be helpful, some of the stuff I have to say about what's going on with me as I write. So let's talk about that. The first thing I want to talk about is in the past couple of months, I have not been working on the book because I was working on these videos. I have now almost finished work on the videos, enough to start getting back into the book. And what I was one of the things I wanted to talk about. My personal process benefits from stepping away and coming back. You get to see things that you just could not see when you're all grinding on a particular project. You start to see it only one way, and you can't conceive of how to fix the things that you can't get past. One way that you can get past that is showing it to other people, and they, having no affiliation to it, will go, this part of it is not working. But especially if you're doing the first draft, if you're still figuring it out, it's very hard to do that. For me, the thing to do is, if you get truly, truly stuck, I put it aside. I work on something else. When I come back to it, I am looking at it differently. Okay, so yes, I might end up with that ambition. Thank you. Cool. This is great. I am I'm not first time noveling. I did write a novel 30 years ago, in the late 1980s, early 1990s. Anyway, so what I am doing when I work on my project here, I'm gonna show it to you. Share you my screen here. Okay, this is in Scrivener, the The software I use is called Scrivener. I am not advocating that it is somehow better than I like it a lot, but you should work in the software you feel comfortable with. I like it because it can let me break things down into small documents, but unifies them into a large project. So what I have done here, if you notice over here on the side here is sort of a binder, they call it, which has a list of the folders and the documents. What I've been doing is I opened a folder called Character Work, because when I went through the outline, here's the outline. I have the outline, and each section of this, they're not really chapters, each section, I have got a little document for. Now, as I go through it, I will hit a point where I'll have a question. In other words, I am not sure if this character Charlie has friends in this group of artists that he's working with. And I haven't decided that. So I leave that in pink. I format in this as a question. And then what I do is as I go through it, I will, and you see, I don't have a lot of questions for a while, but then I start to get a lot of questions. We get to where stuff is lots and lots of questions. And for every question, what I am doing is just, I go back up to this document here, this character work, and I ask a question like, what is the progress of their love story? Or even, what are their first dates like? What is the turning point when their first dates become a serious affair? What are his rules for their relationship? What do they do together before the WPA, meaning when they are dating, when he is poor and she is rich? That is the story. Hey, Najo. Okay, cool. Yes, I am very tempted to try adding graphic art into fiction too. Not for this book, but maybe one day. Cool. I am so glad that you can be here. That's great. Maria is one of our hardest working writers among the fan base here. Okay, so what I've been doing is as I go through the outline, like I said, I will come up with the question. Even things like, what does Charlie eat? Now, what I find fascinating about this for me, what's been coming up to me is like when I'm writing a script, when I'm writing a TV show or a movie or something, I don't need to know what they eat. Unless it's coming up in a scene. For one thing, there's only like 60 scenes in a script, in a feature-length script, much less for TV series. So therefore, I don't need to know. They go out to lunch. If it's, if I want to choose like they go out to a fancy restaurant or they go out to a pizza place, I will say that, but it doesn't matter to picture every detail of their life. What I'm discovering is in a novel, at least for me, people are different. I actually need to know the details. I need to know everything about their lives for many, many, many more scenes, which means I'm just finding myself asking a lot of questions, a lot. And that's really cool because the good thing about this is I have faith that the process of asking questions on the page, like writing down the question and then writing down the answer in an organized document, I will actually get the material that I need to write. Okay, let me just say hello to some people. Hi, Moons of Madness. It is a matter of getting, so let's just talk briefly about this thing, Scrivener. Scrivener is an amazing software, but because it has so many options, you can look at things different ways, you can sort, you can format, you can organize in so many, it's so flexible that you need to learn a lot and work with it a lot to get to where you're doing it your way. For instance, just to talk about this briefly, because it's important to know you should have control of your work format. In Scrivener, it is possible to open up a whole other window where you have these notes and you have these labels, like all sorts of other things. I cut them out because I just can't, it's too much information. And what I've been trying to do is keep it in the document instead of in these separate note cards, because you can also, Yeah, you can set it as note cards. You can set it as an outline. There's all these things that you can do. I'm trying not to do that. Because as Moons of Madness says, it's a matter of getting used to it. You have to work with it a long time, and at least the manual is very helpful. If you want to know how to do something, the manual will tell you. Do I write in order or do I jump around? That is a great question. I jump around. I write. I try to go through in order, but every once in a while I'll get stuck or I'll want to skip. I jump around a lot. I will probably try to write as much in order as I can, but honestly, I jump around. I feel like it's really helpful to work on the part that is in your head making sense, alive at the time that you are working. If you happen to have like a strong sense of a particular part of the story, get it down, work on it. That's me. Yes, DIY. I agree. Thank you. Yeah, novels have a lot, if you're writing a script, the production designers are going to do everything. The actors are going to do so much work. But choosing, understanding, knowing, like I'm writing a historical piece. I spent like an hour today. The main character, one of the three main characters, is a painter. And I spent like an hour trying to find out what art school would have been like in 1928, because he went to art school in 1928. So I'm like, well, what is it? Because like, I don't know, how did they teach in those days? Anyway. Yeah, they just don't. Yeah, most folks really want to write a novel and they just don't know it yet. That is certainly true of me and many, many people. Yes, Sonia is right. Start with the basics and play around. And yes, and it is too. You have to get used to it. With Final Draft, you have to get used to the fact that it steers you to do things a certain way. With Scrivener, it's the opposite. You can do anything. Okay. Yes, I am. All right, Mark. Cool. Okay. Michael, my brain doesn't come up with the beginning or middle until even after the end is... Yeah. Yes, this is right. Everyone writes differently. It's urgent that we know that there is not a right or wrong way to do this. Okay. So let's talk about these... this idea of the details. The reason I wanted to talk about that is because... as a screenwriter, you need to be able to write the whole story, but not every detail. That you actually have to sort of abstract yourself from the details and think about the core essential storytelling. And I think actually that is a super useful way to work for a novelist, because it's very easy for a novelist to get lost in the words. Now, I know that there's some novelists who would say that's all you got. That's all that matters. The language, the observation, the voice. That's writing. For me, I'm just very if I'm going to write something that I want to read, it's going to have a strong enough story, ideally in that form of gorgeous layered language. That's my preference. I don't find it that much. But when I read something that is deeply literary and not very narrative, I can love it for that, but I feel frustrated by the lack of story. When I read something that's good story but poorly written, I feel frustrated by so I'm always looking to mix the two. I like strong stories. So for me, the reason I'm getting into all this detail is because I need to make sure that I understand the point of the scene, which is then going to does it matter what he's eating? No, maybe he won't be eating at all. But if I am talking about that, it's because I'm trying to talk about the quality of their life at that period. The reason that this comes up is because, as I said, the point of this character at this moment is he is a guy who is deliberately refusing to take a job so that he can be a painter. He is taking a stand artistically that he won't do a day job. He's just going to paint. And as a result, he's got no money to eat. His girlfriend is immensely wealthy, but he doesn't want to take any money from her because he doesn't want to be seen as somebody who does that. So that's why the issue of what they eat comes up, because like, well, she wants to go to dinner. She's like, I'll take you out for a hamburger. It doesn't have to be fancy, but let me pay. And he's like, I can't take your money. That's part of the dynamic of the story. Okay. Philip Dick. Philip Dick, I think he just wrote as his mind and the drugs required, from what I understand. I don't think he wrote. His books were often made into movies, but I do not believe that he was always writing for them. I don't think he was. I think he was mainly writing just intensely in his own way. You should see my outline. I have scenes that I have pulled down into the rising action or midway. Yep. Jumping around, even in scripts. Actually, no, not into politics, not discussing it here today, certainly, probably ever. I apologize. As far as if it's a serious question about is it a good story, my basic feeling is there is no such thing as a bad idea for a story. The question is, what are you going to do with it? That's really my main take on story ideas. People are always saying like, oh, you got to get the right story idea, and to a certain extent in the movie business, that's partly true. What will happen is if you come up with an idea that is not an easy, what they call a high concept. High concept is if you can say to somebody, it's about a mouse who wins the Tour de France, and it's like, okay, I need to understand that. That's a cool story idea. But for my story is, it's a love triangle between three people in the 1930s New York, among the painters who were going to become the abstract expressionists. Is that a good story? No. It's what you do with it. I think the story will be super cool. When I tell people about it, they seem to like it. But it's what they call execution dependent. That's the phrase, which means, we'd have to see how you wrote it to know if it's a good story. Okay, so to get back to the issue of how much detail do you need to think about, here's what because I've been struggling with this. I've been struggling with, am I overthinking this? Am I worrying too much about every little question? Do I really need to know that? And what I keep coming down to is the thing that I once read John Irving about writing. Hey, Ches. Good to see you. I hope you got my email responding to your question. Okay, so the question of, am I overthinking it? John Irving said, I need to absolutely organize every single moment of the story so that I don't have to think about that when I'm writing the words. And I really think that that's how I have to work. If I'm trying to figure out the story at the same time I'm trying to figure out the words, first of all, I don't know what words to choose. Like, how do I know what to describe, or what? How do I know what parts of the scene are important if I haven't figured out the story? As for me, some people figure it out as they go along. They do brilliant jobs. I'm not going to say don't do that. Okay, but for me, it's the John Irving thing. If I know exactly who these people are and the people that are involved in doing things at that moment, what are they feeling? What are they trying to accomplish? Where are they coming into the scene from? Just like with a script, then I can imagine the scene enough to write it. So that's me. So then it comes back to a question of having to go through so much detail. Like, I can't believe how much detail I'm having to go to. Hi, Matt. I will get to this in a second. I see your question. What I found about the amount of detail that I'm finding myself at is, I think, threefold. The first part is, let's go back to the character work. You can see what I'm talking about. So when I get to all these questions of what are their, I left this in this form so that you could see this. What happens is I will just write these pink questions. Like I format them as questions. They're pink so I can't miss them. And then I'll sit and just talk to myself on the page here. This is the result of that. And so what I'll do here is like I'll just say, what is that turning point? And I'll think, well, it has to be when Charlie realizes they are serious. Is that their first time making love? I don't think so. He sleeps around. That's something I've already established, is that he's living in this bohemian life and he sleeps around. He's never serious about relationships because he's only serious about his art. So this is the sort of thing I do. I do this actually in pink. I do this as questions until I'm sure. When I finally figure it out, I'll finally say, like, I will come up with an answer. I then formulate it as something like this up here. This is like the answer. And then eventually, sorry, the gardeners from the house next door like to stand right outside my house to test their equipment. And then I will just delete that. And now I have an item for the outline. This is now his first few dates in the outline. Cool. Okay. Let me go back. I've been getting a lot of questions. Let me see what's going on here. So, Matt. Hi, Matt. I have a question for you. How many times do you think a character should try to get what they want before they try that final action? Impossible to say. I mean, here's the thing. Like in a movie or a TV show, it'll depend on the shape of the thing. There isn't a proper answer. There isn't like, oh, they should try 8 times or they should try 3 times. It could be that they try twice or even just once and fail, but that once is so elaborate that it takes up, half the movie. That's cool. Doesn't matter. Or it could be that you see them trying 37 times. The thing you want to balance in that is, are you overloading the audience? Like, are they just going to feel tired of watching it if you do too many? Does it not feel like enough if you do too few? You have to balance it with the feeling you get as you go through the story. That's the only way I can think of to answer that. In a feature, there's only a limited number of scenes. Like I said, somewhere usually between 50 and 60, but it can be a lot more, it can be less, depending on how long the scenes are. And so the answer is, if you take 10, 15 off either end for the beginning and the end, at least, you got 30 left. So you got like 30 scenes. You could theoretically have 10 things happen there, or you could have 2. It really depends. Is the story focused on the people and their emotions? Is the story the actual? That's a great question. Yes, or both, Marty. I would say, this is interesting. To me, the action and the people and their emotions are the same thing. So it's really both. In other words, in my story that I'm telling, some of the actions are making an observation about another person. It's just an action. It's just in their head because it's a novel. If you mean, is my story focused on the emotion or the action flow? I like to try and make things both. For instance, there will be a point at which I was just working on the idea that there's a point at which when Billy, I can't find it now, but Billy is suspicious of this guy Tom, who has become Charlie's best friend, and they're scamming the government together to get money because of the way that the federal government was giving money to artists at the time. At a certain point, she begins to like and trust Tom. And the reason she begins to like and trust Tom is because he does not conceal the fact that he is trying to break up Charlie and Billy. And so she feels like she can sort of trust him because he is being upfront about how much he thinks he'd be better for her than Charlie. So there's a scene in which she talks about how she met Billy. How do we hear about this? It has to be from her. The question is, Billy tells Tom this, and what I'm asking is this for her? Is she telling about how she met Charlie to say, look, this is a story of true love. My love for him is true love. You don't even understand what that is. So she's like warning him off. Or is she sharing her frustration because as much as she truly loves Charlie, Charlie is being a pain in the ass in the story. Is that action? She's just telling a story. But yes, I believe it is. Is it feelings? Yes. So the answer for me, Arnie, is the story is both the feelings and the people and how it is what the action is. On the other hand, in a novel, you can have actions or things that happen which are summaries of ideas, summaries of times, which are not really actions. It's one of the things that I like about it, but it does mean that there are some scenes that are not action. They're background or they're insight. Okay. In a novel, I can spend much more time inside the character's head, so the better I know them. Yes, this is what I was getting at, is that I need to know exactly what she's thinking. I need to know exactly how they met, so that when I say she tells him about the first date, I can say, because I don't want to say, oh, this is a story of first love, I'll say, they were at this party and he knocked over a beer and he didn't even care because he was talking so intensely. That's how I'm going to eventually, that's the words I'm going to use. Not the real words, but so in order to know that, I have to know what the story is behind it, what every detail is, not every detail. So that's where I am coming into it, is the more I know about the character in a narrative sense. For me, this is really important. I do want to know that Billy was raised a certain way, but only because she is taking the action of defying her parents' expectations in the scenes that we see her in, and I need to know that that's what she's doing. I still try to remember the thing I try to teach you, which is try not to invent things that you're not going to use. I talk about this a little bit in the world building video that I did. The idea of like a movie set has like a facade, like there's like a fake front of a building, and the actor walks through it and there's nothing behind it because you're never going into the building, so you don't need to see that. I try to keep that in mind because in a novel, there's going to be, like my outline of my novel is how many? I don't know, maybe 200 scenes. Like it's so many more events than a script would be, a movie script. So I've got a lot more to cover. So I have a lot more questions. But I do want to try and remember that anything I am thinking out, anything I'm answering, why does she believe this or why does she fall in love with that, has to relate in some way to the scenes that I am actually going to show. Okay. Some of my favorite films are those in which I had no interest in seeing and the talent shows through. Yes, dialogue and acting saved the film. Absolutely, yeah. I haven't seen all of those, but the ones I have seen, Gringo, International, and Nice Guys, absolutely, it's felt very much the same way. Okay, how has your experience created problems as a novelist? That is a good question. Okay, David, I have to tell you, if you keep talking about that, I am going to ban you. I no politics here. This is a no politics zone. Okay. How has your experience as a screenwriter created problems as a novelist? It used to create far more problems in that I was simply, the main experience, the main way, I felt insecure. I felt like, oh, I don't know how to do that. This is the other thing I want to talk about today. I felt like, the kind of writing I'm doing as a screenwriter isn't good enough to be a novel. I've changed my mind about that. The truth is, the amount of thought and texture I put into the scene descriptions of a novel, they're very short, but it's the same essential action. I've just got more room to work, more ability to write different ways. But the main way that my screenwriting got in the way of my novel writing actually was simply time. Like, I had to devote the time to the scripts and not to the novels because there's only so much time in a day, and one of them paid money and one of them doesn't. Novels don't generally pay money. So I guess that for me, that is one. The other is to undo the understanding of what you can write about. A screenwriter has very, very strict limits on what they can write about. You can't write about the backstory of a character. Just like you can't just like stop and describe the backstory. Whereas in the book, it actually might be fun to do that. So those are things that really, really did create problems. But eventually what I realized is I had spent so long reading novels and trying to write novels in the first 25 years, 30 years of my life. That was all in there. And so it's not like I don't have that interest or ability or legitimacy. I just hadn't worked on it enough. And what I've realized is the work I've done as a screenwriter is good practice for writing a novel, and that I am able to. I am no longer afraid. And one reason that I want to talk about this because I was thinking about these questions I'm asking myself. I'm no longer worrying about them, partly just because of the amount of time I have spent as a screenwriter answering creative questions. I feel absolute trust about that, and I want to talk about that because there is this video, brainstorming and scratchwriting. Talking about brainstorming, because that's what I'm doing now. And then one of the things I feel confident of is, even though I'm writing a novel and not a script, I feel absolutely confident that as I go through this outline, every time I sit down and set myself one of these pink questions, and I say, what is the answer to this specific thing? And this is where this brainstorming thing is. Brainstorming is creative, free thinking about a specific question. The more specific the question, the more specific the thing you're trying to accomplish, the more you can just lighten up and write down whatever comes to mind. I have gotten so comfortable doing that as a screenwriter that I have a lot of confidence about it as a novel writer. I know now that every time I work on this outline, it gets better. I get a hunk of it that didn't exist that now does. It's sort of like in a video game where you can... when you start certain sandbox video games or things, or narrative video games, sometimes they'll show you a map, but the only parts of the map that are filled in that you can travel in are ones that you've gone into. And that's how I feel about this book. It's like, I've got the map, but there's certain areas that are still not shaded in yet. Not the details aren't there. But if I just keep working, slowly but surely, I will get the whole map. And when I have the whole map, I can write it. That is my guess about it. Level of failure you see in Succession shows how much you can do cares with people loving. Yes, that is you can. Succession is that's the other thing about Matt's question. Matt was saying, how many times can people in a story struggle to accomplish things without getting it? If you look at a series, you're talking about, literally 70, 80 times they can try something and fail. And we go with it. I mean, some people get tired of it. Some people got bored of Succession because of the amount of frustrating failures. Okay. sorry, Zath. There's no discussion of political figures. I at least for the moment, I am not doing that. Okay. Yeah. Don't. Yeah. Okay. Here we go. Hey, unknown. Hi. I am not formally an English teacher. Yes, I am ignoring. Yeah, guys. Okay. I am really seriously warning you. I'm gonna have to make a graphic. No politics. All right. Yay! Thank you. It is absolutely okay, David. You would not have known. Mark, no politics. I'm not getting into it. I'm not doing it. Maybe when the novel is done and I am trying to stir up controversy to get more views, maybe I'll get into that stuff. I don't know. Okay, let's talk about writing. Smoldering Fist. Hi, would you rather turn your book into a movie or turn your script into a book? Definitely write the book. And ideally, it would be great if this was a movie. I even hold on. Let me show you something. This will be fun. Here, in my overview of this, these are just like things to like. This is just a reminder of tell the damn story. Stick to the story. Here, okay. But then somewhere down here, I did casting. Yeah, imaginary casting. Okay, so. Yeah, I do think about it. You can't help it. It's sort of this actually was to help me picture the physicality of the characters. Anyway, so the thing about the missing Titanic stuff is that's terrible. That's sad. I mean, yes, how much. It's just sad. It's sad. People get into a sub. Perhaps it is a privileged thing to be doing, but even privileged people would not. It would not be fun to be a privileged person slowly suffocating underwater. So there you go. All right. So let me get back to a couple of things I wanted to talk about writing. Remember writing? You've heard about it? Okay. So. Among the things that I've tried to do in order to get into this, because one of the things like I said, the thing I found that's really cool, because I'm 65 years old, I've been writing nonstop daily since I was like 11, and especially professionally for 25 years, 18 before that, trying to be professional, so really working at studying it and exercising it. So it's a lot of the skill. And the one thing I can say is the really cool thing about all that is that when I sit down to push myself to the highest level I can as a writer right now, by doing this novel, which is weaving together many characters and ideas, because I really want to get into the concept of modern art and the concept of art and life and the concept of being an artist. That's what I wanted to talk about in this story. And the question of success and failure. I feel absolutely confident, weirdly, that I can do that. Like I can follow the process that I've tried to tell you, where I've broken it down into a set of formal steps. Like I have a set of scenes, an outline. If I can answer the questions of all those outlines, I'm just not used to doing so many of them. But it's the same exact thing I've done for everything else I've ever written, and that's worked. So I feel confident taking on this big topic, this big project. I'm not afraid of that. I'll tell you what I am afraid of, though, and this is what I want to talk about. I am afraid of not doing it, not getting around to it, because I wanted to talk about the concept of selfish mode. When I work on this, I tend to really need to shut the world out. It's one of the reasons I've been pushing you guys away a fair amount, limiting the amount of live streams I'm going to be doing, etc., because I need to just go into my relationship with the fictional. And in order to do that, I have to genuinely not care about other people to a certain extent. That's me, by the way. But at least for what the hard thing is transitioning in and out of that mode is hard. And so I like to wake up in the morning and just get to my stuff and not really talk about it a lot, not do other chores or errands or deal with things. As things of life interfere, I tend to find myself going, oh, well, I did some good work. I'll stop and I'll go back to it later. And then I go take care of, I don't know, paying a medical bill or going to the store or meeting someone to talk about something. And it's very hard for me to get back into selfish mode then. So, all right, David, I'm banning you. I'm sorry, but you got to stop. Okay. All right. Okay. So here's the thing. This selfish mode, this is to me something that I first experienced reading, first experienced watching movies, but especially first experienced reading. And reading was always my safety place. When I was a kid, the thing I could do to deal with anxiety and things in life that were difficult, just read a book, go into that place. And I felt safe. That is actually how I feel now in writing as well. But I feel very conflicted and torn about it's been very hard for me to continue to have this relationship and do that. And I'm working on it. So the thing that I find interesting is I'm not having a artistic question about can I do this book, but I am having a personal, psychological, emotional question about the fact that I've, like with the screenplay or something, it just doesn't require as much depth. There are times, and there have been times when, as a writer of screenplays, I have gotten into that mode of writing that well. And one of the things that I said is I now look back at some of the writing I did, especially the descriptive writing in a script, and go, I remember getting lost in getting those words right, in getting the flow of them, in getting the rhythm, the texture, the content, all to just read really well. But that's what I have to do 24/7 when I'm working on the novel. So for me, that's what I've been finding hard. I am not finding it hard to write. That's where I am. One of the things, among the other things I've had to do, is try and change what I read. Try to actually read more stuff that feeds into it so I don't get distracted. For instance, I like to read a lot of different things, but if I'm going to read, a mystery novel, it's going to distract from this. I want to read books that are set in the art world or books that are written with the kind of narration that I'm intending. Set in like right now I'm reading Ernest Hemingway's A Movable Feast, which is his memoirs of being in Paris in the 1920s among the artists and the writers. The tone is helping me. The podcasts I listen to, I used to listen to, this is interesting, I've listened to a lot of, okay, all right, Zath, I'm warning everybody, if you are going to talk about politics and stuff like that, I am going to ban you. Zath, last warning. Okay, so podcasts. This is very much what I'm talking about. I listen to a lot of politics and society and news related podcasts. And I have had to stop, and I started listening to interviews with novelists. Or stories about history or stuff. Something that was keeping my mind out of engagement with other things, because there is for me, a certain mindset I need to support, to forgive myself for being as selfish as I need to be to write a novel. Because that's really the thing. I feel very personally uncomfortable with the amount of joy, pleasure, the amount that I could just shut out the world and live writing this book. So that's been on my mind. Yes, Schrader, say, yeah. Which character? That's the most important thing for me is, and actually one of the reasons I've been doing all these questions is, I need to identify with every character. When I am writing a character, to a certain extent, I want to imagine them as real and feel what they feel. So there you go. That's the answer for me is obviously. I think Charlie in this story, because he is an artist who is going to, I feel uncomfortable saying this because I'm defining Charlie's character as this undiscovered genius. But to a certain extent, I chose this story because I feel like a lot of stuff that I have written that no one has ever seen. I never released it. But I think, damn, that's good. And the fact that I never finished it in a form that was releasable, just like that's what happens with Charlie in the story. He paints paintings that he never shows anyone because he's still working on them, and he never finishes them. And he never feels that they are okay to show. And as a result, he is completely unknown in history by anyone except the main three characters. So the answer is, obviously, I think I'm drama, and I say this with a great deal of embarrassment. To a certain extent, I'm idealizing myself as Charlie, but I really, really get into to Tom, and I'm trying to learn to get into Billy. That's hard, obviously. I'm not a 20-something millionairess in 1930s New York. Okay, so yes, this is the writer zone. We are just doing writing, keeping the 3-act structure. No, absolutely. I am structuring it as I have mentioned here. Let's talk about the outline. The outline of this story here. I'm gonna expand it a little so that you can see it. Is 4 notebooks. See, outline notebook 1, 2, 3, 4. So there's 4 chunks, acts, if you will, but they are interspersed with 4 little shorts, 5 little shorts, which begin and intersperse and end, so that's the structure. Is that a structure? Is that a famous structure? The famous 4+5 structure? No. It's just what I came up with because it tells the story well, and the numbers felt right. That's all you can do. I got some more Hemingway on my. It's on my list. I was reading some Henry Miller. I was reading. I read Graham Greene, The End of the Affair, because it's about a love story told by a narrator who's involved. Sometimes you need to let yourself live in the imagined world. You write a story happening somewhere you never visited. Yes. Thank you, David. I really appreciate it. I hope so, because I'm doing it. Can you write a story that happening? Almost everything I've written is someplace I've never been or people I've never been. In this case, I can't go. It's the past. I'm writing about the 1930s and 40s. I cannot go. I can only imagine. Luckily, that's the job. And that even if I was writing about someplace that I could go and I went, I would still have to imagine it. This is my belief about writing. You always have to imagine, even if you are writing about your own experience. There's been stuff I've written that was directly, like I described my own apartment in one story, and I still had to imagine it and then describe it. So my answer is you absolutely can. The tricky thing is you have to, and this is what I'm dealing with now about this historical research, is when can you tell yourself it's enough and you just make it up? I have to describe an artist's loft in 1936. I have to think, what's the equipment like? What is the, and to a certain extent, I do some research on what painters used to paint with, based in biographies and things. And then I'm just going to make it up. That's all you can do. Do you think every character should have an arc? Yes, I absolutely do. In fact, I did a whole video on it, building character arcs. I urge you to look at that because I talk about exactly this idea. I believe every character, even a one-scene character, kind of has an arc. Okay. Thank you, Marnie. Yes, exactly. The thing is, when your job is something you're doing out of love that's not going to make any money, that is sort of for your own enjoyment, but I really appreciate that. That's very kind of you. I would just embrace it if it didn't have too many. Yes, exactly. That's the thing. To just recognize the world will be fine without me. That's that you guys will survive. My various friends and family will accept that. Yeah, it's not. I'm good. Does that mean you're writing from 3 points of view? No. Oh, well, yes and no. I am writing from one. Like, this story is narrated by Tom, by one of the characters. He is telling the story of these people, but he is doing it in a retrospective sense. He's writing this story after the events are over, and he knows things about these characters which he did not know at the time, so he can talk about them that way. So there will be sections where he talks about them, but it's not from their point of view. It may be his imagination of their point of view. In terms of finding a character voice, once you've asked enough questions, is it easy for you when you get to no. Yes, everything requires some things not liking it, but the answer is yes. That's the whole point of finding of planning, of outlining, of asking questions. At a certain point, you have to just the jump from out. Let's talk about that, because that is difficult. That is scary. The only thing I can tell you is, having made that jump now 50 times, I have some faith. And if you don't have faith, if you haven't done it a lot, have faith that doing it a bunch will help. That's right now, I am looking at my outline and thinking, oh, do I know how to write this? But you know what? When it comes down to it, then you just have to put some stuff down, like you said, and then you'll find what's better and worse, and you'll work up the stuff. There will be something in there that sounds right. Maybe even just a word, but you'll say, oh, that sentence, that's good. Now I know something I didn't know. That's really it is. When you're writing stuff, if you don't know something, you put down what you think you know, and then now if it kind of clicks for you in some way as a reader of your own writing, you begin to say, okay, now I know something I didn't know about their voice, about their behavior. Thank you so much. I am very good. Good. I'm glad, Sebastian. Thank you. 30 is listening material. Yeah, absolutely. That is great. That is good. Bunnyberry. Yes, I will definitely. I have heard that, but I will get back to it. Thank you. Yeah, I've been listening to a lot of the music of the time. Okay, so listen, I'm going to get close to signing off here. Thank you all so much. This has been really interesting and weirdly political. But I will continue to do this despite my guilt and fear and self-consciousness. You're asking really interesting questions, and it is fun to share it as I go along. So therefore, Thursday I'll do something more script related. But right now, thank you so much for being here, and you should go write something.